evening, our viewer. A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here at PrayerCaveTV. And as usually, as we say, this is your all-time spot, the Youth Nation Show, and I'm your favorite host, Boyani Maureen. I'm so delighted and happy that you're able to be here with us today, even as we discuss the issues that are affecting the young people. And as we usually say, this is the place that we try find solution, and if not, how are we going to navigate through these issues and help our young people? And kama kawaida, I have my co-hosts.
As usual, my name is Ron Kenoli Okusi. Welcome this evening to the Youth Nation Show. Mazee, tuko na vitu mob tunataka kuongelelea. Hopefully itakusaidia na itakujenga. Ama namna gani?
Awesome. Yeah. As he says, murwa kabisa. And today we just want to know your journey in self-discovery. When did you discover yourself? Is there a timeline? Kuna age inafikanga unasema now I know myself? Or if I can pose a question to you, in a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself? Kindly write to us, comment something on the number on your screen, and let us know how your journey of self-discovery has been. And today on our studio, we have a very a guest. Let me not go into details, but a man of many hats, and he's going to tell us exactly who he is and why he's here today with us. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Kindly introduce yourself.
My name is Steve Muthusi. I am a psychologist by passion and profession. I'm also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, and I am inspired a lot to inspire, challenge, and empower people to become the best version of themselves. And that is why, that's my mission on this planet. Yes.
Awesome. Wow, you've just heard that whatever he's doing is passion and what he loves, and even profession. You know what that is? Purpose. But before we get there, maybe you can just, we want to understand. Is there an age that we get to and we can really tell that now we know ourselves?
I think it doesn't go down to years. It goes down to information.
Okay.
And sometimes I look at how most of us, probably even you hosts here, when you're in school, everybody used to tell you, oh, just be yourself, blah, blah, blah. When this happens, just be yourself. But then the question was, nobody told us, but then who are we? And every time I talk to young people and I ask someone, who are you? And then I get names. So I am Boyani, I am Ron Kenley, and
definitely.
Just the name.
Yeah.
But then when you consider who you are beyond the name, you realize you are many things. Number one, on the surface, you're actually a biological miracle in many ways.
Yeah.
And much as we talk about computing and computer science, we are such a complex human beings or mechanisms that we should be able to explore inwardly, not outwardly. But sometimes we talk about who we are outwardly. I mean, you asked me who I am, and I told you I'm a psychologist, I'm this and this. But these are things I do, but that could not be who I am. So who we are, I think the whole journey of who we are begins with a look inwardly into the things that make you uniquely you.
So is that how we can define self-discovery?
From a psychological point of view, there are three things you talk about. The way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave. And when you talk about self-discovery, then it comes down to looking at the things you think about, the things you feel, and the things you do, and see whether there is something unique about them. So that it is you. You have, if I may use a map up of English, you have Maurinized them, or you have Ron Kenoli'd them, such that even if we had been given the same thing to do, I am Muthusi, I would Muthusinize them, so that there is a touch of who I am. There's a signature of who I am. But if I don't know who I am, then I'll be tempted to do it like Boyani here or Ron here. And even if I'm singing, I'm trying to do the other singer who sang because I'm not comfortable with my own self. And so self-discovery, I think, begins with just looking at what makes you uniquely you. What is the one thing that when you do, people feel like, yes, that was Muthusi, that was Maureen, that was Ron.
And maybe just before we go too far, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your journey to self-discovery.
For me, the journey of discovery started when I found myself already in a profession that I was even questioning whether I loved it.
What was that?
And that was analytical chemistry.
Okay.
Yes, I am a qualified analytical chemist, and I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I have worked with students at the university in chemistry and all that. Okay. And therefore, it comes from a place. For me, self-discovery comes from a very personal place. Because sometimes in the journey of life, you find a building to climb, and then when you're at the top of that building, which is life, you realize the ladder was leaning on the wrong building. And so the challenge for self-discovery is just to have the courage to teach the ladder, and then start asking yourself, who am I really?
Then that will mean you going down the ladder.
Yes.
Then start
Yes,
again.
exactly. Yes. And for young people like Ronnie, maybe he can jump across. Probably
Yeah.
take
we need
a
to save
serious.
time.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, you can just jump across, but there's always a way. I think the moment you begin to find and connect the dots, why do I like the things I like? Why do I like cartoons and not very serious movies? Why do I like my food served this? Why do I like living in this kind of? Why am I attracted to this kind of shows on TV, for example? Why do I read this kind of books? I mean, for me, one time I went home and I sat on my couch, and my bookshelf had every book except for chemistry.
Yeah.
And I'm just coming from working in a chemistry lab, and it had every book from communication, psychology, society, how, those motivational books and psychology books. So I knew that I needed to go in the direction that my heart and my spirit moves. Then there would be the synergy of just going in the direction that your heart is.
Wow.
Yes.
Not your heart going south and you're trying to do north. Yeah.
So generally, I'm getting a feel of it's not what you do,
Yes.
who you are, the thing inside.
Exactly.
So how do you even know?
Yeah, because I'm thinking this is too much work now. This getting to know,
How do you even tap
why
into-
do I love
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
do I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that?
It's actually very easy. If you, for example, if you go to your personal space right now,
Yeah.
your personal space is where nobody is questioning you. No society is watching. Nobody is trying to wonder what you're doing. It's the person you are when you're alone.
Yeah.
And the reason why I talked about my personal space, my house, and the books that were in the house is because they were telling something. They were telling me the kind of things that I am drawn towards. And when you go to your personal space, and even the kind of things you love that you don't even tell people you love. Of course, I'm talking about the things that are legal and things that are moral.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I
good
had
to
something
clarify.
to
Yes,
ask on that.
please, yeah.
Please.
So like books, like what kind of books do you read? There's a friend of mine, for example, who loves everything astronauts do. She will post anytime they are launching a rocket to the moon or something. So what does that tell you? And then meanwhile, when you're doing that, probably you're doing something else.
Yeah.
And so I think it comes down to looking at your personal space, looking at how you like things done, the kind of things you write and say when no one probably is judging you, and you realize maybe this is where I am. Maybe I'm just fulfilling somebody else's dream. And for me, it was my books. They kind of talked about everything else in the social sciences other than in the natural sciences. And then I had to find my place in the social sciences. Not as simple as it sounds, but if you start looking and even asking people, I know you have friends of yours who can tell you what lights up your face when you talk about. A friend of mine does a literally festival, and I usually tell her, every time she starts talking about the digital festival that she runs for authors to come together from across Africa in the Kenya National Theatre to present their work, she kind of lights up. So I think everyone has something that kind of lights up their face when they start talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think if we are careful enough and if we ask our friends and we are very conscious and present enough in ourselves when we do the things we do, we can always tell this thing actually excites me.
Yeah.
It may not be bringing the money, it may not be bringing the fame, it may not be bringing the acknowledgement and the likes on social media and every other place.
Yeah.
But this is me. This is
Within.
within me. Always, like the Bible says, there is normally the stamp of peace. You feel like this thing just makes me feel so peaceful.
Yeah.
And even if I do everything else and do this one thing, whether it's music or programming or teaching, this thing doesn't tire me. It kind of re-energizes me.
Yeah.
But other things tire you in 2 hours.
Yeah.
But you can do this other thing for 15 hours and you're still good.
Yeah.
You know.
You
And that
mentioned
is where we go.
something about being present.
Yes.
And I feel that is one of the things that we have missed out.
Yeah.
Like we are not present
Yeah.
in ourselves because of so much things that are going around,
Yeah.
especially the pressures in the society. You have no time to really listen to yourself and be present for yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe we can address that kidogo.
Recently we had a conversation about something on being and living undistracted, and I was telling my brother here that I might be his very big brother or uncle, because I lived at a time By the time I was 21, and those days I was telling you I was in this church, I did not own a mobile phone. And you can imagine I'm 21, I don't own at 21, I did not own a mobile phone. And even when I owned one, it was called a Siemens, and it was just this thing you call Katululus. So there was nothing like internet. I mean, my first email at 23 thereabout, someone opened it for me at a fee. Because I didn't know anything about internet. Yeah, but some nowadays people are born with smartphones in their hands, and then they start scrolling reels and everything. So we get too distracted, and we are never able to be in one place and just be in that place. We are never able to just sit and feel our feet on the ground. And when we are walking, we are not able to walk and feel our feet on the surface, because even sometimes when we are walking, we have earphones and headphones, so we are so distracted on one side. But on the other side, we also have societal expectations. The society expect us to do certain things in certain ways, and that is why if a young man goes and does medicine, another one decides to go and do film, the one who did medicine is the one whose parents might feel prouder, which should not be the case. If people are actually more present, it should be the case. It should be that this is where the person I harm is drawn towards, and this is where the other person is. They are drawn towards. And in this way, then we are just carrying out our divine assignment on earth. And therefore, being present simply means that you are so present to every thought that crosses your mind. You are so present to the things you watch on TV and realize, why did that thing attract me so much? Why do live shows attract me more than just movies? Why do I like horror movies? But maybe that could also talk about your mental health status sometimes. If someone but we don't go there. But being present really can, you can hear a lot of things. And again, I go back to the Bible when it talks about the still small voice. The still small voice cannot be heard in a loud, noisy environment. And our environment is so noisy that, allow me to say this, that even our toilets are not safe. People still carry their mobile phones to the toilet. Even when you're in the toilet, you're still scrolling things. So you don't hear things. There are things that God is speaking, but you don't hear them. And I usually use the example of signals. For example, where we are seated right now, unless someone has a signal for PrayerCaveTV, they don't receive it. Doesn't mean that if I'm walking on the road and I'm not watching PrayerCave, it doesn't mean that it's not here. It means I'm not tuned to that. And therefore, the reason why we get untuned to ourselves is because most of the distractions that we encounter every day and the way our life has become so digital is because we are too busy in our noisy environment. We are too busy looking over our shoulders whether our friends like us or not. Do they like this dress or not? But nobody opens us and checks inside. How is my programming? How is my wiring? Because our wiring then should determine where we are fixed in this life.
Now, mentioning the societal pressures and all this peer pressure and all that, how have they influenced the way we self-discover ourselves, or that journey of self-discovery?
Interesting. Sometimes I usually say we are being trained to tick boxes. And if I may come from where I'm coming from to where Ron is, in our times, you are expected to go to school and pass very well. Then you are expected to go to the university. Not any other place, to the university. The university is the goal. It has to be the goal. And even today, I mean, I go to high schools. I still hear people today still saying university. It is not a problem to go to the university. The question is, the university is a very expensive place to discover who you are. Very expensive. And sometimes when we look at these things and look at the society, then we are left to tick boxes. So I went to the university, tick. Then after university, they expect you to get a job. They don't care how. Just get yourself. Then you tick a box. From there, they expect you to get married. Then you tick another box. From there, if you stay for 1 year, they start wondering, what is happening with this brother? You tick another box. And so it is ticking boxes, and by the time you know it, life has just passed. And you have actually not experienced life. And so to answer your question, we should move from a place of just ticking boxes because the society needs them to experiencing life because that is who we are. So we move from
talking about that, there's someone who is watching us.
Yes.
For them to feel accomplished is to accomplish what the parent wants. You see. So we most of the time live the dream of our parents. Your parent wants you to go to university, and that's what you're pursuing. Not for you purposely, but for your parent. So how can we then separate ourselves from that?
I think there are two things. The challenge with that, number one, is if your parents have a dream for you and you don't have one for yourself, then it simply means that you are going to go for that, because then you cannot leave. You cannot just say it's not my dream, but I don't have one for
But
my own.
honestly, we know we have always chose our parents' happiness
path.
over
Over
ours.
hours.
Yes.
And then the whole idea of evolution comes in. And sometimes I think we're in different levels of evolution.
Yeah.
Some people can easily tell their parents, of course, very respectively, that I'm not able to do A, B, C, D because I'm this kind of person. So I would wish to pursue CDF. But then the challenge is, like I said, that sometimes we are not very sure. By the time we are clearing Form 4, we are still caught up in teenage and adolescence and many other things, and pleasing our friends and building our likes on social media. So we are still caught up in the noise of our digital world. And the reason why I say sometimes our parents have a dream, and we actually like the dream. They even paint a beautiful picture of that dream.
Oh my.
But the beautiful thing is life always offers us a second chance. I mean, like I said, I did my chemistry, finished, got a permanent and pensionable job. And until I was
Pensionable.
yes, permanent, very important. Permanent, which means I use that just to mean that I would actually have decided, okay, I can as well die here.
Yeah.
But I think depending on the information available to you, and that is very important. What kind of information is available to you? What kind of information are you allowing yourself to interact with on social media, in church, for example, in the marketplace? What kind of information are you interacting with? Because that information is going to then dictate how you start seeing yourself, the courage you build also to pursue your own dream, and also to paint the same dream with better colors than that which is being painted to you by other people. Because the person who paints the better picture then takes the day. If my parents are able to paint better, then I'm likely to follow that one, because I haven't built my capacity to see mine and also paint it in all the colors.
So true.
I'm just curious, where do you draw the line between taking things from authority, the information from authority? There are people that are above you, right?
Yes.
That sometimes you look up to. They are doing things that you like, and maybe how things worked for them then might not be working for us now. So where do you draw the line between taking advice from authority and now taking your path?
I think the first answer to that one is you cannot take direction from a person who has not been to where you want to go. Which simply means that this person needs to also have affirmed to you that they also are on their path. So if you find someone who is also struggling and they know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you're also likely to be advised to just take that and make the money and make it big and all that. But once in a while in this life, we find people who have dedicated themselves to self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-development. And those are people that we can now pick ourselves from. And so the question was, how do we separate these two? For me, the best way to separate these two is this person speaking from a place of externalities, from a place of internalities? Because we get easily attracted by form, things that have a physical appearance. I know if I do this, I start coding today, I hear those boys are making millions in a month. No. Then I can do my BMW when I'm still 21. I mean, these are externalities. But is this person speaking from a place of how much peace is this thing giving me? How much difference can I make with this thing?
But I think again with what Ron is saying, these are people who maybe are in a place in the society. You look at what they have accomplished. So the kind of advice they're going to give you, you think
comes with some power.
This is right. If you look at them, they're okay. So definitely they know what they are saying.
Yes, I hear you. But the word okay has many layers. Are they happy? Are they making a difference in the world? Because we are only here for a few years. Ron, we are here for about 70 plus. YOLO. And so you have to decide at one point. Do you want just to make a dime or make a difference? And if it's just a dime, then yes, you can go ahead and make money. I mean, I have lived without money. I've also lived with money. I prefer with money. Anytime.
Definite.
But I also prefer that when I'm making this money, am I also happy? Am I actually sitting here and smiling at nothing? Because the life, I'm living a life of meaning. Because I can have all the money. I mean, I'm not a very good theologian, and if I say something at first wrongly, correct me. There's a place it says, if you had everything, then you lost your soul. What would it benefit a man
to gain the world
and
lose his soul? And so I think the whole question of self-discovery is just finding your soul, and where your soul finds solace, and also where your soul finds a place where it's like a fountain of life. So that when I do this thing, It may not be making the money. It may not buy me the latest BMW.
Yeah.
But my soul is finding solace. My soul is finding peace, and my soul is being watered by the thing that I'm doing. And so, to talk about the people from authority, it is true that people in authority, I mean, even wisdom from rich people, even if it is foolishness, is also a lot respected.
It is true.
Yeah. And assuming nimesema because somewhere between
It's
Genesis and
somewhere
Revelation,
there.
somewhere. Yeah. So it should be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And then the other challenge is, if you don't know who you are, no one else can ever tell you who you are.
Wow.
And if you let people define you, then they may also as well defile you in a way, in the process of defining you, because then they bring in the things that make sense to them.
Yeah.
But the question, what makes sense to you? And that's why you said earlier, it's hard work. It is hard work.
Yeah.
But if we want the microwave way of doing things, then yes, they can even connect us to the way they made their life and all that, and we're okay. Which means if this big man has some opening for chemists, and then they want to put me there, then I'm like, the kind of money they make, let me also go there.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Trust me, at 65 years,
We
you
may
may not be
have
thinking about how much money you've made. You'll be thinking about a legacy. And if you had not lived a life where your soul was at a place where you can make something out of your life,
Yeah.
then you are still going to look back and say it was just vanity. Yeah.
Now, does our hobby, our passion, what we love, do they have a way to who we are or self-discovery?
I would
Is
say
there
yes.
any connection?
Yes, of course there is. But then there are two different things. There are the hobbies of, some people ask some young people hobbies, and my hobby is watching football.
Yes.
Now, that
And
hobby may not have,
swimming.
and swimming. but the part of watching, if the hobby is playing football, that's a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's playing football, then you are actively involved. So any hobby where you are actively involved in doing something can lead you somewhere. Not the hobby of I love horror movies or I love watching Netflix.
watching
I love you.
movies.
Those hobbies don't lead, because you are a passive consumer of that which is being
why
served.
did our English teacher allow us to write those things in
Which
our
ones?
composition?
Which words?
That our hobby, my hobby is
They
I
had
love
to take salary.
watching.
They did not know any better.
Okay.
I told you they told us to be yourself, but then they didn't tell us. But who am I?
yeah.
And then tell us how to find ourselves so that we can be
The
that.
how.
Yeah, the how is the most important part. And therefore, hobbies, I think, could speak to us in many ways. Because if you I was talking to a young man yesterday, and he really, really loved football, and he made a career out of it. But then he got an injury. And then looking at his hobby, which is still football, now he's opening an academy for talent, which is still attached to football.
Yeah.
And he tells me he wants to just go to the estates, collect young people, build the parents a little, some little money,
Kidogo.
and coach them some football, get
Yeah.
them some gear and some jerseys, and they play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it comes down to kujituma when it comes to those kind of hobbies. So you need a hobby that you're actively involved, and you're also involved not because you want to please people. It's something that you can actually do. I mean, something like football, even if I was interested and I'm not good, then it will dismiss me at some point.
It is true.
Yeah, but if it's you're really good, everybody appreciates how well you do. I think we can do a lot today with an hobby or a talent.
I'm just curious. Do these things change? The things that you love, you might have loved it maybe when you are 15, 12, but now you're 25, 30, and it seems like things are shifting.
Different,
Yeah.
That question is important, because I'll say, look at the thing that has been changed, and you'll have discovered yourself.
Look at the thing.
That did not change. Look at the thing that, I mean, if I loved football, I loved this. At 30, I still loved playing musical instruments, but at 30, I'm still struggling to learn a musical instrument. Then that tells you what was you and what was not being influenced by the time you are living in. Because like we used to have church here, for example, and a lot of people were in the music. Then I would also, there's a beautiful choir, still is, but I'm talking about the one I know. And then we would all want to be in the choir.
Yeah.
But then, we all want to sing because everybody's singing, peer pressure, like she called it. But then there's something that when you go to your personal space, you still pursue that. I think that is a thing you should be looking at. So that if to date you still love music, and you're not even now being pushed to sing somewhere in a choir or something, then probably that could tell you who you are. It should not keep shifting the person you are. It could shift in a different, for example, the young man I was telling you, it shifted from him playing football to getting an injury to him wanting to start a football academy. That is still football. And him wanting to maybe form a football team and become a coach or something, that is still a progress. It could shift, but it shouldn't change.
Okay, so that's just the first half of this, and we'll be right back after this short break. So don't touch the dial. Thank you for joining us and welcome back. And to our guest, we are going to be talking a little bit about personalities. So what do you have to say about the personalities that you know?
The question of personality has been very debatable depending on where we are coming from. But I could begin from a place of what really is personality, how we define personality. And the word personality comes from the word persona, which means a mask.
Yeah.
And so when people are acting in the stage, in those places, in the theater, they would wear a mask, which means one person could act different people, but wearing different masks, which means I could wear a mask of one person, then I wear another mask of someone else so that I depict that person. So a mask is simply the mask we wear in the world, sometimes to hide some things so that we present ourselves to the world in a different way. And therefore, in the broader aspect, there are many things. There is a 16 personality inventory. There is a South African personality inventory. But a more, an older version of personality has 4 personalities. I hope I can remember them. And the first one is sanguines. Sanguines are the popular guys. They are the guys who, if you have a church like this one, everybody knows one guy. This one guy is just known by everyone. They interact with everyone. They know everybody is their best friend. They have 1,001. Yeah, Kinaron. Yeah. Everybody has their number. They have everybody's number. And then there are the melancholies. People are just laid back and they don't have a lot of problems. They don't have a lot of friends, for example. But when they have friends, those 2 friends will show up. The other guys, when they have 1,001 friends and they're stuck somewhere at 3 a.m., they may make a call and everybody is busy with other friends, you know. Yeah. Then there is the choleric. The choleric, we call them the powerful personality. These are the leaders. I don't want to mention the politics of it, but these are the guys who move things. These are the guys who will go out there and do some activism of things and start singing solidarity forever. So the cholerics are the powerful guys who push things. They make leaders, they make people make change and force change if they are not able to make it. And then there is the phlegmatics. Phlegmatics are the peaceful guys. The peaceful guys are the guys who will apologize even when they know it was your mistake, just as long as there is peace. So they're a bit peaceful, they're a bit for them the goal is peace. For them the goal is calmness. For the sanguines, the goal is being popular. We want to be known. We want to be out there with everyone else. And for which one have I left out? The melancholy, the phlegmatics is peaceful. The locholerics is power. And then the sanguines is popularity. There are many ways of getting to know your personality. I mean, there are even available places online where you can even try to take a personality test. The reason I said we should take it with a pinch of salt is that some of them come from a Western perspective, and then there are usually a lot of cultural difference in how we interact with people. Africa is very collectivistic in a way. We work in groups, we work with people in communities, we work with people in spaces that involve us interacting together. The West is very individualistic. By the time a child is 1 year and can maybe sit on a bike, they're on their own, they do their own things and all that. A personality test simply tells you how you present yourself to the world. It simply tells you things that would come easy for you. For example, if I am this kind of media guy and I am a melancholy, then it might bring me a lot of stress because I don't like to be in crowds, but then the media thing here requires me to be in crowds. You know, Or if I am a subordinate with someone, I'm a choleric, and the person working with me is a sanguine who just wants to have fun. You want things to be moved. And so knowing these personalities, the only thing it does is it simply tells you that the way you're interacting with the world is not weird. It's just the way you are wired. Because sometimes people think, are you weird? Are you this? Are you that? Why are you so silent? Why don't you want to go out? You know, those people tell you they are very busy, they can't go out, but they're in their beds sleeping. They are very busy. Sitaweza leo ni have something working. But the sanguine is like, hey boss, where are we going? Kwani leo hamna mpango? Yes, so basically personality is just the way you present yourself to the world. The way you present your person to the world is the mask you wear.
Yeah.
But again, if I may still continue on that one, our personality is developed from many things. Of course, there is a genes part of it, and then there is the environment part of it. In psychology, they call it the nature-nurture debate, which means I have the genes, I have the predisposition of becoming something, but then the environment I'm brought up in could also shape how I am brought up. If, for example, I'm brought up in a village with my mom, grandmother, uncles, in a large family, then I'm likely to learn more things than someone who was brought up alone and they just want to be on this on themselves. And so there are a lot of things around personality, but it's good to understand your personality, because then it helps you understand, for example, what career can I pursue? What kind of business can I pursue? Is it possible I need to pursue a business that involves people and I'm not a people person? Or you pursue a business that involves a lot of critical thinking, and you're not the kind of person who sits down to think. You just want to be out there with people, you know. And therefore, knowing that is important, because then it gives you direction on the things you can pursue in this life.
Nice.
Now, there are challenges we've gone through life, you know, maybe how we were brought up, maybe our past experiences, traumas, and all that. Do all these influence or affect our journey to self-discovery?
Yes, they do.
How do they?
If I may come from the biology side of things, when we are born with, of course, a brain or bodies that are not developed. And that development is shaped by the experiences that we go through. Like, for example, when you are growing up and you go through trauma as a child, then it might affect how, for example, you respond to stress, because the stress response mechanisms in the brain are affected, because every time you're stressed, the biology of stress is such that when you get stressed, the brain produces cortisol. It's called the stress hormone. If a lot of cortisol is produced to a brain that is young and developing, then it might hamper development or affect development in a way such that when you grow up and you are faced by an emotional situation, you may use uncouth ways of dealing with emotional situations, like knocking somebody's teeth off or crying on, or, you know, all those kind of things. But then there's a way of being confronted by situations and dealing with them in a way that people would say it's mature. But sometimes it's biology. It's just the way we've been shaped. But then I'm not absconding our responsibility to deal with things to biology. So yes, trauma affects how we develop. Trauma affects how we interact with the world. Trauma affects many things. I mean, I have heard stories of kids, for example, if a child is abused by a relative who is tall, huge, maybe with a deep voice, it has been shown that if they go to school and the teacher is also tall, big, and with a huge voice, everything comes back to them.
It affects.
It affects.
I can relate to that. I was just sharing with someone the other day. When I was growing up, I think in my early class 1, 2, 3 there, there's this guy in our neighborhood. He was so tall. He was so dark with red eyes. And every time we'd meet, he'll just open up his eyes on me. And that thing could scare me. Like, I never ever wanted to be sent to the shop because I don't want to meet that guy. It traumatized me. But by that time, I didn't know it was traumatizing. It's now that I remember and I realize. I think the reason why I was running away from him, it's out of that trauma.
And so you can imagine going to the university, to college, to school, and that is the guy who's also your teacher. A tall guy, dark, with red eyes.
Interested in you.
Someone is also interested in you, yes. Who also is tall, dark, and with red eyes. And when you meet, he opens his eyes on you. And so it's like the brain keeps memories of things. The brain keeps memories of things that have happened to us. But of course, the good thing with that is these memories can be accessed and people can grow out. Not really grow out. People can kind of deal with them. Of course, through sometimes professional therapy, through the spiritual leaders that we have, and through the mechanisms that are there to help people deal with the issues of the heart. Because those are real big issues. I mean, I usually say when you have a broken hand and a broken heart, it's the same place in the mind that processes the pain. The pain of a broken heart and a broken hand is the same process in the same neural networks in the brain. But when you have a broken, if Ron had come here with a broken hand, we would be sympathized. Oh, sorry, blah, blah, blah. But maybe he's here with a broken heart. I'm not saying anything. And we don't know.
You don't.
And then we don't treat him with empathy and all that. And so I think it gets to a place where people begin appreciating that when people have been broken as children, and they are not, it's not resolved, doesn't mean with time, time doesn't heal everything sometimes. Time just makes the thing older.
Oh, older. Oh, wow.
Yes, it's like I had a broken heart, and time has just made it that I'm 5 years with a broken heart.
Oh, so you can actually not heal with time.
It depends on what the trauma was, for example. For example, I think earlier we had a conversation about children who have go through such traumatic things that they kind of forget. They kind of put them at the very subconscious part of the brain.
Yeah.
But then later in life, in interaction in the life, these things keep coming up in the interaction with people, in their relationships. And sometimes, and I want to say this because I'm a parent, sometimes it also comes up when you also have children. And then suddenly, the way you are treated, the way you are beaten, the way you are mistreated, you also start pouring that out on your kids.
You slap
And then
back
you
into
slap, you slap back in, you slap the kids. I think
You snap
works.
back into-
You snap back into it by slapping the kids. And I had gotten slapped. And so it gets to a point where as you keep interacting with the life, the things you do keep reminding you, maybe I'm doing this thing because this is the way I was brought up.
Yeah.
I'm just reproducing what was programmed in me. The back end of my computer, this display, is has a lot of abuse, has a lot of emotional trauma, and how I start giving that to kids. So someone told me the other day that the best way to know how your childhood is the kind of life you give to your own children. And then you start looking at it and you're like, yeah, maybe I need to deal with this. Yeah, because under normal circumstances, people love their kids. People are very careful. I mean, you're very careful with your neighbors' kids. I've talked to parents, and they say sometimes they're even more empathetic with parents, neighbors' kids, but their own. It's like they have other things they're dealing with, and so it comes out on the kids.
Oh, wow.
And therefore, I was answering to the question of the trauma did not go away; it could just be covered.
Yeah.
But the fact that you cannot see it or feel it doesn't mean it's not there. Until a situation comes and it is triggered, and then suddenly the beasts come out, and you're like, that was not me. How did I manage to beat that kid like that, for example?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right now, I would like you to talk about the dangers of not discovering yourself. Yeah.
I think one of the dangers of not discovering yourself, the umbrella of it is that you also get lost in the jungle of life. And when you don't discover yourself, when you get lost in this jungle of life, then it simply means that, number one, not only have you not discovered yourself, but you will also not discover the joy of living a fulfilling life on the one side. So
does that mean you've not found purpose?
You have not found purpose. You have not found the fulfillment that comes with purpose, and therefore you keep lost on the one side. So you don't find joy because you've not found yourself. Number two, when you don't find yourself, then you are likely to just be in every wagon that comes along. Then you are likely not to define your path, because if you don't know where you're going, they say any route leads you there. Which means if I don't know myself, then any person suggesting anything, I'll climb. We want to go and work in Dubai, okay, then you want us to go this, okay, let's do this. Because if you have a defined destination, even if you don't know who you are, but when you know who you are, you may not even be headed there. Look at the airport. A plane leaving from Mombasa does not take off facing Mombasa, but the destination is known. So even after takeoff, they find their way back and land in Mombasa. But when you take off and you don't know where you're going, you don't even know when you are lost. You not even know when you have accomplished that which you wanted to accomplish. And therefore, when you don't know the joy, and also when you realize that any route takes you there, the third thing about not knowing yourself is the question of mental health. When you don't know yourself and that lack of fulfillment, it does not do very well for your brain, because then the feel-good hormones in the brain, the endorphins and all those, are produced when we accomplish something that means something to us. If you're not living a life that is genuine, a life that is unique, a life that is unique and your life, then you may not produce enough feel-good hormones to just keep your brain happy and enjoying this life. And therefore, you'll admire other people doing their things, but you feel like that is for them, it's not for me. You'll see other people doing things and you try to do like them, then you realize, I am not them. And that brings in dissonance. So resonance is when things are going together. Dissonance is when things are not going together, which means I am doing this, but I'm this. I am doing something that requires me to be a sanguine, popular and out there with people, but I would wish to be in my bed and just sleep and just think critically about issues. And therefore, that dissonance is not very good for mental health. And you find yourself getting easily agitated when you're in a space that is not yours. You find yourself getting easily offended when you're in a space that is not yours. And also, maybe finally, I would say progress. You only grow in a place that has the environment that is able to make you grow.
Yeah.
I usually ask people that I know, I don't know, you love coconuts, right? Or
Yeah, I do.
you love coconuts too, and you live in Kiambu, for example. Then you ask yourself, why have I not planted a coconut here? Because the environment does not
allow.
Yeah. So when you know yourself, then you also know the environment that is going to support your growth.
That's profound.
And when you go to that environment, then growth becomes like, it's become like magical. I mean, a coconut in Mombasa doesn't even need to be planted. If you throw it in hunger and it lands somewhere, it starts growing there.
Just starts.
Yes, but here, if you throw it with all the love there is, and plant it and water it and cultivate, but it's in the wrong place, you are not going to have coconuts. You still have to do with waru at the end of the day.
Let me take you back a little bit on the mental health issue.
Yes.
There's a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
Yes.
So when do you have to deal with the psychologist and when do you have to deal with the psychiatrist?
Yeah, that's a good one. So a psychologist is able to offer counseling. They sometimes call it talk therapy. A psychologist is able to give you psychotherapy, and a psychologist is also able to help you and give you the skills to deal with stressful life events when they happen, because they often do. But then when it comes to issues of addiction, for example, and someone with withdrawal symptoms, or someone who is already diagnosed with schizophrenia, for example, someone who is already in an advanced stage of schizophrenia, and they cannot be still and they cannot hold normal conversations, then psychiatry is involved, because while a psychiatrist can prescribe drugs, a psychologist may not be able to give drugs. Yeah, so it comes from a psychiatrist is more, a psychologist is more the therapy, counseling side of things. The psychiatry is more on the clinical side, on the medical side, where then you can deal with someone who is dealing with something that requires a drug to at least bring them to a level where you can now have a conversation.
And maybe before we leave there, this journey of self-discovery, is it just a personal journey that you take, or does it need you to have someone who walks this path along with you? Like maybe having a mentor, having someone like a coach, or you just do it by yourself?
I think any journey worth taking is worth taking with someone on one side. But on the other side, it's a question of can you also find someone who has also found themselves? And that is where the tricky part becomes. That, for example, if you wanted to have to start a music band, it's very easy to want to sing with someone because two voices are better than one. But then do you find someone who is talented, passionate, with the kind of voice you want? Also found that whose singing also means as much to you. And therefore, I think it's important to work with people who also don't have this expectation paradigm I was talking about, who don't expect you to tick boxes alone, but who expect you to evolve into the being of who you are on the one side. But then if you cannot find those people, you'd rather be yourself alone, but be a clown with other people, so that you're not just trying to please the friends to fit in their circles. Because especially for young people, fitting in a circle is very important for them. They can do anything. I mean, I found people who started smoking weed just to fit in a circle, because everybody was smoking. And therefore, if you find someone who is passionate about the things you're passionate about, and you know it's also coming from an inner place, not an outer place, then yes, any journey worth taking is worth taking by two people. Two are better than one, so the Bible says.
Well, that's beautiful.
I'm quite curious now, as kids and young people, how can parents help in the self-discovery process? Because they're the ones that we are around. They're the ones that need to care most about their offsprings and all that. So what can parents do?
If I had only one shot on this answer, I would say the parents need to discover themselves. But now that we have a few minutes, let me explain. That a parent who has not discovered themselves may not help a child discover themselves, because they are dealing with the same thing. The one I was telling you, that you cannot ask for direction from someone who has not been where you want to go, on the one side. But there is good news. The good news is that we are living in the information age. Any parent who wants to do the hard work that Maureen was talking about can find a way of finding themselves on one side, and also entertaining the idea that the person I brought to this world is actually a person in their own world. They have their own uniqueness, their own world, their own space, and they can dream their own dreams, and they can achieve their own things. And when that idea begins to be entertained by parents who are informed, even for them, because of time, like you're saying, sometimes age, and of course I don't think there's any age where you say you cannot discover yourself. Question maybe the next question. But even if you feel for you cannot go back to school and study medicine at 85 and you're the parent, then you can use what you have learned. The fact that at 85 I wish I had sacrificed external things for internal things, then yes, you can help your child. But this helping them needs to come from a place of understanding that I brought up a unique person, and this person has their own wiring, and I only need to find a place where these wires can be plugged into something and becomes a fire, other than trying to tick the boxes.
I'm just going back and just looking into this parent. Tuseme tu ukweli tu ni wa mashamba. Like this thing of information and all these things. Anajua waking up in the morning, going to the farm, coming back, doing 1-2 in their house. That is all about they have for life. But deep down in them, they will really want to help their child. And but what we can see here, this parent, hivyo tu ndio anajua, lakini anataka tu the best for this kid. So how do we answer that question? Ron.
Yes, I think that one comes down to the children being in a space where they can also be empowered. I don't know about both of you, but I wouldn't say that my self-discovery was influenced, for example, by my parents. Ilibidi nijitume. What books am I reading? What Instagram channels am I following? What TikTokers am I following? What reels am I watching at night? Because I have some 50 GB bundles in a day, I'm a 50 MBs. How am I using them? Because then if your parents do not have that privilege, then you are an offspring of that. You don't have to go through the same circle. They've brought up you here. So I think it's taking responsibility for our own journey, because whichever way, it's your journey. Your parents have taken theirs. Maybe some parents actually are living that way and they actually enjoy that part of the farm. But the question to the young person who is supposed to be brought up is, what information, like I asked earlier, are you availing to yourself? When you have the ability to be online and have a conversation with Ron, for example, or with you, for example, what things do they ask you? And then the tragedy we have is that someone was telling me that if the generation we have now was to find themselves in a place, for example, with a celebrity, say, let me use a neutral one, Obama, for example, the former president of the US. If you are to find yourself in a lift with Obama and you had only 15 seconds, 80% of the generation we have today would take a selfie and post.
Definitely. Where will you?
Yeah, we need the
moment?
lights. I mean, we need to show off.
Exactly. So what that tells you that they're also not very willing to be led. Because under normal circumstances, if you think about that before you meet him, you'd be thinking, how did you make it there? Your dad came, had you, then disappeared. You lived with your grandparents. You lived with a single mother. He confesses one time he even smoked a joint. I mean, how did you grow through these things to become the most powerful man in the world? And on the other side, among the best presidents America has ever had. How did you do that? And for 15 seconds, he can pitch something for you or tells you something that could shift your life. But I'd rather take a selfie. Then Maureen here and Ron here would know that I know people. But then after that, you don't even have their number. You do not ask for a number. You don't even ask for a contact. I mean, you can imagine all the contacts Obama would have. Some of the things we probably, sorry to say this, but some of the things that we probably are fasting and praying about. Maybe in a lift with Obama, it tells you, oh, call this guy.
Oh, he has the access.
He has the access. Yes. And so we need to also ask ourselves, as much as we would have loved to have someone guiding us, now that we live in this age of information technology, what are we using it? How are we using our phones? How are we using our access to information? And the people around us.
Before you even go far from that, now living in the era of information, technology, social media and all this, can we say that somehow social media or technology has hindered the journey of self-discovery?
Yes, in a big way. Because then in our times we had very few options presented to us. In my village, I grew up in a small village in Ukambani called Matuekani. My sister would laugh when she hears this one. But those days we only knew teachers, we only knew policemen, and once in a while you know the chief, exactly. And therefore your options were really limited. But then once in a while you'd be told people go to the university to do sciences, people do this. Of course we knew medics, for example, who are working in our villages, in the local hospitals,
Clinics,
and all that. But then the technology we have today gives you access to so many things that you realize someone can actually be an influencer. I really still don't know what that is. But then you have the option of you can also be an influencer. I don't know if they're teaching that in any university.
Well, it's something. It's coming up.
It's coming up. Maybe
yeah.
there'll be a curriculum. But then the point is that the way it hinders is, number one, it gives you so many options. And then when it gives you these options, it also gives you the lie that they don't show the back end of this person by the time they are becoming an influencer. How much work do they put in? By the time, allow me to use the example, by the time Crazy Kenna is hitting and doing comedy shows and everything, what time does he sleep? Is he also scrolling reels at night up to 3 a.m. just watching people do their thing? Or is he putting in the work? Is he putting in the structures, and he's bringing in the right people to work with? Because when you look at these people on TV, when you see them on TV and on our social media, you think they are comedians. These people are serious business people. They have serious work ethics. They sleep late and wake up early. One of my friend actors who was acting in one of the programs, I met her one time and I was like, hey, yesterday that was good. You're like, what was good? So she told me she doesn't even watch. Because she's thinking of the next project. And so how this makes us be lost is, to use an example he was using, when you find yourself, for example, in your house and you don't have electricity, like I found myself one time. And when I find myself without electricity in my house, you actually realize you actually begin to introspect. You actually begin to think about thinking. You actually start thinking about what you're thinking about. And you start considering your life. What did I do here? But social media puts us on a very distracted path. And currently there is a term they are using now. They are saying we are overstimulated. Which means after you've watched everything you're watching, the brain is so overstimulated that if you give it another activity like reading a book or reading the Bible, it's very boring. I mean, it's not aikufiki.
Very true.
Mali really kufikia. And so because of that, then you're not able to do the hard work of thinking about yourself, about your life, and going down to who am I? Why do I like these things? You're just there. I mean, sometimes, even myself, sometimes I wake up, I'm lazy, it's a Saturday morning, I'm not going to work. I'm like, oh, what happened here? What's up? By the time you know it, an hour is gone. Another one is gone. I remember those days when I was still in college, I would watch movies up to 3 a.m. And you're like, how much time can we waste anymore? Because social media puts us in a path of being so busy but not accomplishing anything. We are doing things that we are not actively involved in building something. We are just seeing what other people are doing. Kama seen watalii on social media, just seeing this guy posted, okay. Then a day goes and you go back to sleep. And it's really very sad that sometimes some of the young people I know, someone will even call you and say, hey, you need to burn out of 50. Then you're like, what are you building on? Kuna hii movies you nani ilitoka you. You're like, okay, how do we create time to do the opposite of a stimulation, to detox from social media and then think just about ourselves? Yes. And if you want to try, you can just plug over the digital stuff in your house on Friday evening until you come to church on Sunday. That weekend will be one of real self-discovery.
Ron will come and tell us.
Yes, you could try. You could just.
How do you survive without social media? I mean,
the way I survived until I was 21, and I'm still here.
And you know the funny thing with social media is, after you've swiped and swiped, you can't even remember what you watched. Like 5 videos ago, you can't remember what you watched. You know, and a lot of young people are into that. And the journey of self-discovery is a journey that, okay, I don't know, it never stops.
Sure.
So, and a lot of young people are impatient to become what they're supposed to be. So what do you have for them?
If I may pick something you just said, then I come to what I have for them is the reason why you don't remember the thing you pushed is because there is something called real dopamine. Real dopamine is what happens when you accomplish something. Let's say you have decided to create a movie, a film, and then you have put in the work. 6 months later, you bring here, Bishop looks at it, thinks, we can do this, or someone else looks at it. Then you decide you're actually taking it to the KNT, and maybe when there's a film festival, then one day later, the whole thing becomes something. And you win an award. You see that feel good thing that you feel? That is dopamine. you know.
Yeah.
But then there's cheap dopamine. Cheap dopamine is when you find yourself in a place where you're just scrolling and seeing something that you like, you feel very good, then the chemical is produced. And so the brain becomes addicted to cheap dopamine.
Yeah.
Then you realize when someone has acted a movie and it's winning awards, they also have a dopamine surge or spike.
Yeah.
But it's coming from effort, it's coming from things you have done. So what I would say to the young people, because I wanted to make that background clear,
Yeah.
is that we should look for rewards based on the things we have done and put in the effort. We shouldn't look for quick fixes. We shouldn't look for microwave solutions where you have to just press a button and then it comes out. And it is hot, it's fresh, and it tastes very good.
I know.
Because sometimes when we get into that loop of cheap dopamine and of things that are quick satisfaction, we don't benefit from how making a film, the one I was telling you, for 6 months, it builds you.
Yeah.
It makes you understand how to interact with people. The people you munakosana in the film, then you come back, reconcile. You have learned a lot of things by the time you are six months, and you have your film ready, which I don't have if I'm just pressing things. I mean, this example I know has been overused, but I also come from a generation that used firewood.
Yeah.
So if you know you're going to make modokoi because of at Sasaba, you start preparing in the morning. Actually, the previous day you go collect the firewood the previous day. Then in the morning, sometimes you'd put the modokoi in water so that it kind of softens. The modokoi has already been prepared.
It's a journey.
It's a whole journey. By the time you are eating lunch, you actually feel very good about yourself.
Umefanyia
You
kitu
feel-
I can
kazi.
tell you,
Yes.
Indomine kids are not
Yeah.
even getting
Oh
what I'm
my.
trying to say.
Na ni gas unawasha hata.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a question of just do something.
yeah.
Just find something that you can do.
Yeah.
Don't be lied by 1,000 likes. And also don't be depressed by 2 likes. Find something you can do and keep building it. I mean, I was here when we were building, when this, not we were building, correction.
Yeah.
I was here when this church was still being constructed and it was wooden on one side, and then Bishop would keep extending the church as more people started coming in. When I came in today and I was being shown where to go, I was like, wow,
You're surprised.
someone put in the work.
Yeah.
You can actually now drive across to the community's
Yeah.
site,
Yeah.
which means someone put in the work. But if he was just admiring people's churches online and feeling good, because it's also a feeling good of
Yeah.
sorts. It's not the same feeling when it's you actually doing it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, find something that you can put in some work, hours, effort, and do it. And if you are on social media for more than an hour a day, too little, right?
Oh
Yeah.
my.
Yes, with my students we installed it's called a what screen time timer
Yeah.
on their phones when I was doing some research, and some students are on social media, or rather on their phones, 8 hours a day.
8 hours.
And I'm told that is not even the worst. Maybe those who are even very kind to report that. Sometimes if you count the amount of time you waste on social media and on the phone, it's a lot. It's affecting our brain because of course the light, it has been shown it's overstimulating the brain, and then the brain becomes lazy to even think about real critical things.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's for us to decide what we want to do. Find something you can do and put in the work. Put in the hours, put off that phone.
Yeah.
Or do something more constructive on social media. Sell a product or something, not yourself.
Yeah. Sell a product, not yourself. So there's so much that we could talk about here, but time is really not on our side. I don't know whether Maureen has anything.
Oh my God, that was power packed. So much information.
Yeah.
And this is just an interesting well
Yeah.
that you'll just want to quench and quench and quench, because I know you have not finished.
Yeah.
There's so much that
There's
we
so
can
much
learn.
we could talk about.
Yes. And maybe, Mr. Modus, you can just tell us where we can find you. If someone wants someone to talk to, where can they get you and how can they get you? If you have social media handles, maybe you can share them with us.
Sure. I am Steve Mudusi on all social media platforms. You find me on Facebook and on Instagram.
Yeah.
I go by Mindspace on .network, Mindspace.network on TikTok, where we also talk about mental health issues. And yes, if anyone wants to reach out on those social media platforms, I'll be very much available.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's it for today, for the Youth Nation show. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope whatever you've watched has helped you, edified you into becoming who you're supposed to be. We'll see you next time, but until then, goodbye.